The movie begins with supermodel Bella walking down the street. Two young girls stop her and ask for a picture. She says sure and tells the girl, "Don't forget to tag me." And she's gone. The scene forwards to Bella's replacement, a new model named Zoe, who's on a photo shoot looking up what happened to Bella. Another model named Nadia walks up and asks if she's Bella's replacement. Zoe asks if she knew Bella. Nadia says they were friends, but she and Sydney were roommates. She asks Zoe if this is her first swimsuit campaign. Zoe says, "No, this is my first modeling job." She tells her this is a really good first-time shoot because she gets to stay at the model house. She goes on to say that she just broke up with her boyfriend, but they still live together, so she can't wait to stay at the model house and be away from him. During the photo shoot, the photographer tells Zoe he needs her front and center for the last group photo, but she falls and sprains her ankle. They all arrive at the model house and Nadia gives Zoe an extra top she had from a company that sponsors her. Later that night, Zoe is trying on the top and Nadia loved it. She takes Zoe's phone for a picture, then Do Not Answer pops up on her phone. She gives it back to Zoe and tells her everyone's waiting. In the living room, Trudy and Sydney are giving Zoe tips on getting more followers, telling her she needs to show more skin. She says it's cold where she's from, that's why she doesn't. But Trudy says she's from New York and no matter how cold it is, she always lets her friends out to play. Zoe starts messaging a random person in her DMs. All the girls want to know who it is and how long they've been seeing each other. Zoe said she doesn't know him and he literally just DM'd her. They tell her don't answer random DMs, models don't do that. But when Nadia sees who it is, she gets concerned. Just then, Nadia's live-in ex-boyfriend shows up. He's persistent and wants them to get back together. When she asks, "How did you know I was here?" he says, "Don't you remember we share our locations?" She tells him no men are allowed at the house and he's going to get her fired. Nadia is explaining that the reason why Steve came over is because she's been ignoring his texts all day and that he's not a bad guy. They all get in the jacuzzi and start playing Truth or Dare. Carla is dared to make out with Trudy, and Trudy jumps at the chance. But Carla says, "Don't touch me, I have a boyfriend. You can kiss me on the cheek." She tells her don't post that picture and goes to get drinks. When it's Zoe's turn, she picks Truth, and Nadia asks her who's Do Not Answer. Zoe says it's her father, he's an alcoholic, and she doesn't talk to him anymore since he broke her mother's nose. Carla comes back with the drinks, they take another selfie and go back in the house. Zoe goes outside and Nadia tells her she didn't want to say this in front of the girls, but the guy that's been DMing her is the same guy she sees everywhere and she's being catfished. She then tells Zoe we need to go inside and go make some more content for Instagram. While they're doing that, there's a knock at the door and it's the neighbor who wants them to turn down the music. But Trudy flirts with him and then he leaves. Sydney and Nadia go outside to talk. Sydney complains about always having to be the token curve model, so Nadia gives her something to calm her down. Nadia leaves and a car pulls up to the house, and when Sydney approaches the car, she's grabbed. They put a gun to her head and the home invaders bring her into the house, round up all the girls and force them to unlock their phones. The female kidnapper says they have nothing to worry about. They don't want anything from them, they want their followers. She tells them that she's going to post a donation link for the deceased model Bella on all of their pages that's connected to an untraceable offshore account, and when it reaches $1 million, they'll leave and they'll never see them again. But when 2 hours go by and the money is not coming in fast enough, the masked female comes up with another plan to make one of the models strip for money. But when Carla refuses, Trudy says she'll do it. She dances for a minute and it's terrible. So Carla gives in and decides to do it herself. Once she starts dancing, she screams for help from her followers, but Annie the home invader never went live. So Carla grabs her phone and live streams and screams for help, but Annie pistol whips her and she hits her head on the desk and dies. Thomas says no one was supposed to get hurt and tells Annie he's leaving, but she tells him with the money they can travel the world in matching Gucci sweatsuits and convinces him to stay for another hour. Then Annie pulls out her phone and texts someone. Thomas drags Carla's body into the garage, and Carla's fans are going crazy. They want to know if she's okay, so they post something to keep them calm. Just then, Nadia's boyfriend Steve comes back. Walking up to the house, he's staring at his phone and doesn't notice the home invaders moving the models around the house. When he gets to the door, Thomas answers and won't let him in, tells him he has the wrong house. Steven is suspicious and walks around the side of the house looking in the windows, and he sees all the models tied up. That's when Thomas appears and they fight, and Steve takes his gun. He brings Thomas in the house at gunpoint and makes Annie drop hers. Then Annie's foster brother Flip comes out of nowhere and shoots Steve in the head. Flip gets the cleaning supplies and starts to clean up the DNA evidence, while Thomas and Annie have Sydney tied up outside by the fire pit. Thomas tells her she's gonna be okay, but Annie throws her in the fire pit for seeing their faces. Flip puts a rag in Zoe's mouth to keep her quiet, and Thomas comes in to save her. During a commotion, Trudy picks up a gun on the floor and Annie gets shot in the process. While Flip and Thomas are in the garage trying to dispose of the body, Annie passes out from the pain. One of the girls has a lighter and tries to burn the restraints to get free. Once they free themselves, they call one of the bad guys into the room, and Trudy says she has to go to the bathroom. When Flip gets close, they attack him. Flip screams for Annie to wake up, and she starts shooting everywhere. Zoe escapes outside and Thomas shoots at her and she appears to be hit. Meanwhile, Sydney, who was thrown in a fire pit, awakens without a scratch or a burn on her. Back in the house, Flip is holding Nadia. Trudy throws something and hits Flip in the head. Nadia runs, but Annie jumps on her back and starts choking her. That's when Sydney comes in and wraps her jump rope around her neck and starts choking her out in the hallway. Trudy, who was at the front door where Sydney came in, decides to run to the garage and escape through the slowest garage door opening ever. But Flip comes in and chops her with a hoe and then calls her a hoe. Nadia and Sydney attack Thomas without weapons and he gives up. Zoe, who was supposed to be shot, gets up and runs to the neighbor's house and calls the police. Meanwhile, Thomas is tied up and Sydney has his gun and she's pointing it at Flip. Flip pulls his out and finishes her off. Nadia runs and Flip asks Thomas if he saw where she went, but she was under the table getting a piece of glass and stabs him in the eye. While he's trying to pull it out, she tackles him to the floor, but Flip pulls out his knife and pokes her multiple times. Zoe comes back and sees Nadia on the floor and tries to help, but Flip comes out from the hallway, so Thomas kicks a gun over to her and she pops him twice and he's gone. Thomas pleads with Zoe to let him go and tells her that the guy she was DMing all along was Annie. She demands to know where she is, and Thomas says she's in the hallway, but you don't have to shoot her, she's dead already. Zoe goes to the hallway and sees Annie's body and walks away. That's when the police show up and take Zoe outside. When the police come in and search the house, her body is gone, and we see her outside crouched behind a car and she runs away.